Welcome back to another video about the Quadra 700. What we want to do today is to upgrade that thing a little bit. I got some more memory to max it out, hopefully to the maximum configuration, as well as video RAM. One of the things I've seen occasionally in forums is that if you add more video RAM, the machine will actually slow down. So in order to figure out whether that's accurate or not, we need to install some benchmarking software. So these are the two topics for today: upgrading the machine with more memory and video RAM, and how to get software onto this thing. There's two main methods that I want to talk about on how to get software on here. There are some resources on the internet like Macintosh Garden and the Macintosh repository, I believe, that have an abundance of older software you can download that work on these 68K based machines. And so one way to get this on here is through a CD-ROM. So if you use a modern computer to browse these websites, download the software, burn it on a CD, and then use the external SCSI CD-ROM drive to get the stuff on here. It's a little bit cumbersome, but it works. And in fact, this is one way that I will use to get a basic expander, like, have stuff at expander on here, onto the Quadra, because most software archives do need that to be unpacked and to be usable. So that's what we'll install from the CD. The other methods that I want to use is, obviously, why not download things directly from here? This does have an older browser on here. I believe it's either Netscape or even Internet Explorer might work on this thing here. And most of those websites do not require an SSL connection. So we will use one of these lovely adapters here. This is an AAUI to regular Ethernet that we can plug in to try and get this thing online, and then just download the software directly. Alright, the CD is in, and let's see if we can just install the Aladdin software, which should contain most of the unarchiving software that we need. And that will set us up for getting all the software archives that we'll download directly later unpacked onto this machine. So it doesn't actually say what it's going to install, but let's install it anyway and see what it does. I just looked into the internet folder on the Macintosh HD, and it does indeed look like we have at least two browsers on here. There's Internet Explorer and Netscape Navigator, so we can use either one of them. So let's go ahead and get our network connection set up. Okay, so I have the AUI adapter plugged in, and now I'll simply connect it up with my network. So I have this Ethernet cable plugged into a much larger version of this basic Ethernet switch, and I don't know what kind of connection speeds this thing will be getting. We can measure that later, but let's plug this in, and then we'll set up the internet connection. So we'll go back over here, and I believe what we want to do is the control panels, get to TCP/IP, And then we want Ethernet and using DHCP server. And that should be all. And hopefully that will save. And now let's see if, probably doesn't matter which one to use, and we'll see if that has been successful. I can see some, yeah, you can see the light coming on and off, hopefully, over there occasionally. So let's see if we actually have a working connection or not. Cannot communicate. Yes, I understand. Let's see. Oops. A basic Google search page should still work. And yes, I know these annoying JavaScript errors all the time. I should probably use Internet Explorer. Okay. We do have connectivity. Excellent. Let's try this with maybe Internet Explorer and see if that throws up fewer JavaScript. Oh, not enough memory. We will address that later. Let's quit Netscape then and try Internet Explorer. I'm hoping this will throw fewer JavaScript errors. In my experience, Internet Explorer is a little bit less susceptible to this from my old web development days. And I will probably throw up a few complaints, but not as many. Yeah, here we go. It's loading the page already. Some loading issues, but few complaints. So we'll use Internet Explorer for this exercise here. I'll spare the agony of having to, with painful slowness, browsing through the search results, but I think we found a candidate. Speedometer, I think, is what I'm looking for. Benchmarking suit for 68K max. So once this has recovered from the latest scrolling attempt, I can actually, now I can click on it. We'll see, yes, the details of it, check if it's suitable, and start the download, which I'm sure is only going to take another 24 hours to complete. Alright, so I don't think we're getting any of the images to load properly here, but hopefully that page has loaded enough now for us to inspect the texts. Oh well. 3.23, we probably do want the latest one. macOS 8 to 8.1. Which is probably what we need. And off we go with the download. And I'm sure this is going to be, less than 1 minute. That was fast. Okay. So by dropping the SIT archive onto this, I was able to finally get this unarchived. And here we have the speedometer. So let's try and launch that and run some tests. So why don't we just run all tests and then which drive to test? Yes. And off we go. Alright, all tests are done. We are probably not so much interested in most of these, but CPU performance. Let's get rid of most of them. This machine, let's see, do we save? So, I'm hoping this correctly saved all of that, because now I'll shut it down, put some of the upgrades in, memory and video RAM, and then try this again and see mostly if any of these things here have slowed down as suggested. So, goodbye, and see you in a bit. Okay, slight change of perspective, and I think what we'll start out with is replacing the memory, and maybe I should also put in that battery, although, I mean, this thing is probably not going to explode on us, but at the same time, do we really need it? Do we want to risk it? Nah, why bother? So let's start by taking out, and maybe I'll remove this power cable temporarily. We don't even need this because the SD card, the blue SCSI replacement for the SCSI hard drive, is bus powered, so we don't really need that cable. Although it does have a header for a power supply. Now, these things look to be a little tricky to maneuver. But here we have the old memory sims. And I need a tool to properly get in there. So I'll just use this plastic spatula. This one I can get to pretty easily, but this one I can't. So you just bend this over slightly to dislodge this. Okay, out it comes. Last one in. Let's put power back on. Actually, no. First, we'll plug in our cheap insulation layer between the SCSI to SD. Sorry, blue SCSI and the rest of the board. Does this go in properly? Come on. That's interesting. I have it disconnected from power, but it's still getting power from somewhere. So somewhere a capacitor, probably in the power supply, is still loaded up with juice. Lesson learned, be careful. Okay, I'm going to plug this in anyway. And now we'll go back over there and see whether it boots up. And we have successfully upgraded this to 68, I think. Yes, megabytes of RAM. What a great number in this modern day and age. So let's continue with the video RAM and then we'll rerun the benchmarks. Alright, we're back here now, ready to put in these video RAM memory sticks, and interestingly enough, there are 6 slots as opposed to 4 for regular memory. No idea what this is for, maybe a ROM upgrade potentially. So we will put these in, and I hope / believe there is only one way to do that, and so we'll slot them in from front to back. For some reason they all came in their own pouch, but at least that way we have something for the old memory to go in. So let's make sure we align this correctly, snap forward, done. Okay, these are all in. We'll reinstall our temporary insulation layer. I will put in a proper bracket for this later on. And we'll move back over and fire it back up and rerun the benchmark tests. Let's try and rerun the tests. Okay. And again, we don't see... Oh, actually, graphics information. I should have looked there before. It does not show the video RAM or amount of video RAM here either. So interesting, but definitely saw the change, so we know it's installed. Q700, excellent. Okay, so let us now run the tests again. Where was that? Here. Run all tests, and off we go. Okay, so I did look at the documentation real quick, and most of these numbers are indeed the absolute duration numbers in seconds for those tests. So we can see here that monochrome is running like 100ths of a second slower, 200ths of a second slower for 2-bit, 4-bit, 8-bit. They're all slightly slower. And then here on the color one, it's again 100ths of a second slower than the previous one. We can always run this again and see how much that changes. Okay, run number 3. It seems to have similar numbers as the previous one. They are higher still, and so I think 3 out of 3 average seems to indicate with more graphics memory these graphics tests are slightly on the higher side. If that really is making a big impact on like perceived actual real-time performance for anything that does need a lot of color, like games for instance, I don't know. That's probably going to be hard to test. But I think we'll leave it at that. Get back to reassembling that machine and putting it back together. Okay, so in the grand scheme of things, they both seem to be so close. Pre-upgrade, post-upgrade. Pre-upgrade is 69% in comparison with the reference system, the Power Macintosh 6100 at 60 megahertz, 68%, so 1% point lower post the upgrade. For low resolution publishing graphics, they seem to be identical. High resolution, that has not been tested since that resolution was not supported. If you're looking at some of the more detailed metrics here, I'm assuming that the amount of kilopixels per second higher means better, since it can push more pixels through by time. These are slightly lower post the upgrade. So if you're looking at erase arc, whatever that is, 3433 versus 3400, so about 28 difference here. 101 versus 100% compared with the reference system, and that is a consistent theme. They are slightly lower post the upgrade in terms of how many pixels it can push through, or kilopixels, thousands of pixels per second, across the board here for all these different dimensions, which I really don't know much about. So again, I'm making the assumption that more is better, and so that seems to be consistent, that post the upgrade it's a tiny difference in each of those, with lower, with more video RAM here. So again, don't take this necessarily as face value. This was one single test run with either configuration. I should probably do this a few more times for both configurations, with and without the VRAM update, and look at the averages across test runs. But if we're just looking at the single one, there seems to be some evidence, if only minor, to suggest that with a video RAM upgrade, there seems to be a slight degradation in performance. I doubt this is something that, as an average user of the system, I'll ever notice. But there we go. These are the numbers. Do with them what you see fit. Other than that, I think I'll leave it at that, and I'm now enjoying more video RAM, even if it doesn't give me necessarily anything in terms of speed advantages as evident by this test. But then, as usual, these are benchmarks. Real life scenarios can sometimes vary depending on the actual software that's used and how that takes advantage of the graphics capabilities of the system. So that's what it is. If anyone is interested in the details of this, I did save it somewhere, so feel free to let me know in the comments if you'd like to see the details, detailed data published somewhere, and I'll see what I can do. So, alright, all there is left to do now is put everything back together and put tools away, so the floppy emo can go back in the shelf until its next use for a project. And because it's been open for such a long time, I'm going to give it a bit of a brush and hoover. This is an anti-static brush, and I have a little mini handheld hoover vacuum cleaner to get the dust out. Whoops, don't need this anymore. And then we'll put all of these components back in. The drive cage, where did I put it? Oh yes, the blue SCSI on its new sled, which doesn't properly fit, but oh well, at least it stops it from rattling around and shorting out on the metal bracket. Okay, that is clipped back on and safely in place. Now let's make some noise. Let's put this away temporarily so it doesn't get in the way, and remove as much dust as possible. One thing I should probably do is open that power supply, make sure there is all of the dust removed inside as well. Check for electrolytic capacitors, which this probably contains, but that's for another project. So let's get cleaning. Okay, so that's done. Whoever sold me this seems to have taken good care of it, because there was very little dust and grime in this machine in the first place. So next comes the drive cage, and there is a little screw down here which connects it to the motherboard. It did not come with that screw, so I'll have to see if I can find a replacement one, but I think for now should be fine to install that without, and I have to figure out how exactly this fits in here. Okay, there's a little bracket that got into. Okay, doesn't this sit all the way flush to the board? No, it does not. Does it need to? Actually, it does, I believe, yes. Okay, then let's put the power supply back in. That works much better. Okay. Before I put you back on the tripod, just want to give you a quick insight into that tight space down here. I haven't fully plugged this in yet, but you press down on the cable, which I don't even know if that is in correctly. It should be. It's keyed. It's very hard to see. And if I have my big fat fingers down there, you can't see anything either. I have to take this back out and readjust. So it is keyed, so that should be the right way, but I also don't want to bend any of those pins. Let me put you back on the tripod for a moment and then try to tackle that. Okay, I think that is it. Where is my lid? Be right back. Ah, okay, it is the other way around. Carefully snapped in place, and I will give this a good clean. It was pretty clean in the first place. Now, in terms of feet, this didn't come with the original feet, and all I managed to get for not too much money were these kind of tiny rubber implements. These just snap into the bottom here. I can show you real quick. Turn it on its head carefully. And I did install these temporary foam things so I could stand it on that side, but we can remove those now. And these things here just snap in there. And there are different ones that kind of wrap around that I think are more original, but these will do. They definitely look better than my janky little foam pads. Just to make sure everything works, we'll plug this back into power and give it a quick test. Alright, we'll turn on the monitor. Which needs power. Be right back. Okay, now that we found the outlet, we can put this back in. What I still need to do is put the old RAM sticks away. So I'm just going to use some of the bags from that new RAM. Those are 4 sticks. I think I'll put them in individually. But while I do that, let me turn this on and see if everything still works. We are now going to test the floppy drive, and I don't know where I put the functioning one, but I'm just going to use a random one to see if that eject mechanism still works. And if... Okay. I hear reading noises. Oh, no, we go. Disk is unreadable. Let's see if we can initialize it, continue, and here you can hear the noises. And I do like that little icon here. It shows you a picture of the Quadra with an arrow pointing towards where the floppy drive is. Okay, so that worked. I got it to format. Let's eject it and see if it actually comes out. Otherwise I'll have to take this out and give it some more attention. So let's test this real quick. Ah, brilliant. Eject mechanism works. That makes me very happy. Okay. Well, that concludes the overview of the Quadra 700. It wasn't really a restoration video. There wasn't much to do other than I've upgraded the hard drive with a blue SCSI, tried an Ethernet adapter, installed a new operating system, Apple Unix, AUX, repaired, or rather replaced the floppy drive, which now works very nicely, and gave it some feed RAM, video RAM upgrades, some tests. So yeah, I think after some light cleaning of the case, this goes into my collection. But thank you for watching. I hope this was interesting, and on to the next project. Or maybe we'll play with it a little bit more. So stay tuned.